So what I'm going to do today is unbox an Aqua L Ultramax filter for you. Now these filters come in a range of sizes. They come in a 1000, a 1500 and a 2000. So depending on the size aquarium you've got, there's recommendations in regards to the size of the filter that you'd require. In general, with a filter, the larger the filter, the better. It's very rare that upsizing is going to be to your detriment. Most of the time, the bigger the filter, the more fish you're able to have and the less often you have to clean your filter. So upsizing your filter is a very good idea. These filters are very cheap to run, very low energy consumption. So this filter has some very unique filters, such as their removable pre-filter that makes this filter extremely easy to service. So when we go ahead and unbox it, so this is a European product made in Poland, very high quality. You'll also find that Aqua L are very good with spare parts. It's quite often that you'll buy a filter and then you'll find that spare parts are basically impossible. So you've got your instructions, which are a great idea to look at. If you're watching this video, you probably won't. So what we're going to find is a large box, which is going to have all our pipe work and so forth in it. And then we're going to have the filter itself. So the filter itself will be wrapped in plastic. So very attractive box. You'll be upset to throw that out. So then we go and unwrap the filter itself. Now, any time that you're installing a filter, it's a really great idea to put a drip tray under the filter. So that just needs to be anything from a baking tray to anything that is just going to sit the filter. That way, if you did get a little dribble while you're changing your filter, then it's going to get collected in the bottom, so it doesn't potentially damage your cabinet. So when you actually pick up the filter, it's a nice big sturdy unit. Once again, the different sizes are a different size physical filter. So showing you what happens, we open this up. We've got the big latches here, which are also replaceable as spare parts. Then we've got these little latches here. So once we've opened up all 8, we then can lift our top up. Now this is where the impeller is housed. Several times a year you want to give the impeller a clean, preferably every service. So we're just going to turn this like that. Then this will pull out. And you get your fingers under it. Then underneath there, we're going to have a cover, which we need to get off, like that. Then you're going to have access to your actual impeller. Now we're going to pull the impeller out, just make sure it's all in order. And you definitely want to be doing this several times a year. You want to be giving the impeller housing a good clean out, and then you want to give the actual impeller a good clean. Once you've done that, we can pop it back in. Put the cover back on, and we make sure that the bushes are on each end of the shaft. Then we pop the cover back on. Then we're going to lock it back in by simply putting it in position and then turning it. So that clicks in like that. So that's been done, and that's exactly how you would clean it. You also just check that your O-ring is in order. So the O-ring is just going to sit up in the top of the hood there. Now, something to be aware of whenever you're opening these particular filters is check that the O-ring is in the head, but you also want to make sure that you're checking the O-ring in the pre-filter section. Now, one of the most unique and great features of these particular filters is the pre-filter. Now, the way the pre-filter works is you open the top of the unit up, and then you can pull the pre-filter out. So basically the water has to go through this section before it goes into the rest of the canister. So it'll go from here down to the bottom of the canister, it'll travel up through the canister and then out through the outlet. And so you can clean this one very easily just by making sure that all these taps, make sure these ones are on. Then you can just flick open up that one. The water won't leak out because the pressure will be maintained from the other clips. You can then pull this out, and then if you really want to, it's a great idea to get one of these as a spare part, because this is not biological, this is mechanical. So all the media in the filter, we want to be cleaning in water from the fish tank, not water from the tap, because we want good bacteria to grow in the filter. But whereas this here is mechanical, so it doesn't really matter. So tip number one is have a spare one. You can buy these as a spare. You can order it at any Aquarel store. So then you open that up, you pull this one out, you pop that one in, you close it back up again, and then there's your pre-filtration done. It can be done very, very quickly. Now another tip with this as well, so you can take this away, you can clean it, and then you can do that in your own time. But another thing that people will often do is they'll actually get the sponge, cut the sponge in half. Now you've got two sponges. Then instead of just having sponge in this top section, what we can actually do is put a turbo in the filter by adding polyfilter. So then you just cut the polyfilter to fit into this area. Then over a period of months, this polyfilter will adsorb and absorb anything impure out of the water. The polyfilter starts off white. It'll change color according to what it's removing. And then when it turns to black, you know the polyfilter needs to be replaced. So when the polyfilter needs to be replaced, once again, you just pull out this unit, replace the polyfilter, give the sponge a bit of a clean, then pop it back in again, and that can be done without almost any mess or fuss. So it's a great way of being able to keep your filter running and serviced without having to take the whole unit apart. So once again, we're going to look through here. We are going to open up the canister. And in this top section, there is also an O-ring. So it's very important that you check that this O-ring in the top is in place, because if that falls down, it won't create a seal. So the O-ring must be up here and must be clean and in order. That's really important. Then when we take the unit apart, we've already discussed the impeller. Then another really nice feature with these filters is that there's no wrong way you can put it. With a lot of these canister filters, it's quite intricate to where to position the canister. This one doesn't have that problem. All of the boxes can just go in as they fall. Now at the top, they give you a fine sponge. So typically you'd give that sponge a good clean out on a regular basis. Once again, if you clean the sponge with tap water, then it's going to be mechanical. If you clean this sponge with water from the aquarium, then it will be biological. Whether you do that or not would depend how dirty the sponge is. The other thing that you can also do is look at replacing this sponge as well if you want more polyfilter or more finer pre-filter. The next thing you get is some noodles. Now the noodles I find are more effective if you take them out of the bag. So we want to open up the bag and tip that into the tray. And these noodles definitely want to be cleaned with water from the fish tank, not water from the tap, because a lot of tap water will contain chlorine, and the chlorine will stop the good bacteria from growing. So the idea is we have the filter running, we add a little bit of fish to our aquarium, and we make sure there's lots of oxygen in the aquarium, so very good surface agitation on the top of the tank. Then over weeks, the good bacteria will start to grow. Then you can add a little bit more fish to your tank, and then we wait another couple of weeks for the good bacteria to grow. Then we add some more fish to the tank. So the idea with the system is add a little bit of fish, wait for the bacteria, add a little bit of fish and wait for the bacteria. And there's various good products on the market that can help give you the bacteria as well. So the next thing you're going to find is some fine filter floss. And then the very last one is a coarser sponge. So that's your coarser sponge, and then that's your finer sponge. So now when we go to set the filter up, we can either put this one on the bottom, and particularly if you're using your pre-filter, then by all means we can have this one on the bottom. If you're not cleaning out your filter as often, you may decide to put the Noodles on the bottom, because if you put something coarser at the bottom, it won't clog up as quickly. So let's say we choose this option, then we're going to put that down. Once again, it doesn't matter how you put it in, because all sides will work. Now the next thing we can choose is whether to put our finer floss or whether to put our sponge in. In a perfect world, I probably wouldn't use either. I would consider upgrading it to a more advanced media, such as Marine Pure. So Marine Pure is going to offer parallel denitrification as well as just nitrification. So what basically happens is your fish produce waste, the nitrifying bacteria breaks the high level waste into low level waste, then typically you'd be doing water changes to keep down that low level waste. Otherwise, if you use a more advanced filter material, which can go perfectly into this filter, you might go for Marine Pure. And I would specifically go for Marine Pure because of the millions of dollars of research that have gone into the surface area to void space within the media to allow the formation of anaerobic bacteria without getting, there are bad anoxic bacteria that you don't want growing in it. So that won't happen with this media. And because of its particular porous structure, it'll allow maximum denitrification. So therefore this media here, over time, not quickly, but is also going to have an ability to reduce your nitrates. You can get more advanced medias that you can just add into this. Next thing I'm going to put in is the fine sponge. You can choose what you want to put in next. As a rule, I usually go coarser at the bottom, up towards finer at the top. Once again, that matters particularly on how regularly you clean your filter out. And then how often do you want to clean your filter out is the more often you clean it, the more effective it is. But definitely if you notice the flow reducing, then that means it's definitely time to give the filter a clean. How often you need to clean your filter is very much governed by how big your tank is, how many fish you've got in your tank. If you have a lot of fish in your tank, you have a lot more waste, therefore your filter is going to need cleaning a lot more often. If you have a big filter on a smaller tank with not as many fish, the filter will not need cleaning as often. So that's why upsizing your filter at the start is absolutely the best. Next thing we're going to do is take the fine filter floss out of the plastic bag. So that's really important. Anytime you buy an item, it's really good to take the whole thing apart, put it all back together again. It really allows you to understand how it works and make sure that you don't get any treats like, for example, starting your filter up when it's still in the plastic. That's unbelievably common. So we want to take this out, spread it out along the bottom of this tray. So once again, in a perfect world, I would probably look at using this tray to put extra Marine Pure in. So I would be putting the Marine Pure into this section because I find that's going to maximize the results. It'll really turbocharge this tank if you're running it with polyfilter and Marine Pure as well. So replacing this for Marine Pure and putting the polyfilter in the top is something I would absolutely consider as a way of turbo boosting an otherwise very good filter. So this comes out of the plastic and goes in there. Then we've got our fine one, we put that back in there as well. Now we've got to make sure nothing's blocking these holes as we place them into the filter. Then we just put the grid across the top and we make sure that they're all sitting in nice and straight. Once that happens, we can put the hood back on again. So we grab the lid, we can put it any angle, which is actually a really lovely thing because it's something else you don't need to think about. So we're then going to pop that on the top. Then we're going to put our grey clips. Once again, all these clips and so forth are also available as spare parts. So put them on. So it's just a matter of lining up the little hook on the top of the clip and pushing it down. That's as simple as it is to put on. Like that. Get the clip on the little ridge, push it down, and that's it.